Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. I'm so excited to come to you today with a shelf spotlight. This is a series that I do mostly once a month. I did miss doing one in January, but each month I come to you with a different kind of a topic or type of book that is on my shelves. I own quite a few books and I like to highlight different things about them in order to kind of show you what I have on my shelves, what I have read, what I am excited to read. And this month I had a request for some middle grade historical fiction. This is coming at the perfect time because I just posted my middle grade March announcement video just a couple days ago. And this month, February, is Historathon and Historical Fiction-a-thon. So it's combining two of my loves, middle grade and historical fiction. This is like my sweet spot in reading. So I do have more books here that I've actually already read than I do of ones I haven't read yet. But I have almost 20 books or so to share with you. So I'm just going to dive right in, starting with the books that I have already read. So the first one I'm going to talk about, I think, is the oldest time period, and that is Sweep, the Story of a Girl and Her Monster. This was our group read for the second annual middle grade March in 2019. This one takes place in Victorian London, and we learn about children who are chimney sweeps, and we kind of learn about child labor during the time and how they were taken advantage of in following this young girl named Nan, who becomes a chimney sweep, and she gets trapped in a chimney one day and makes it out because of this piece of coal that was in her pocket that becomes a golem, which is a part of Jewish folklore as well. So it's very interesting to combine those two things, the historical side of things, but also this folktale feel with Nan and her monster. And it was lovely, and I cried, and it was a book that you just want to give a hug to at the end. I absolutely would recommend this 1000%. I think the next oldest might be the Little House on the Prairie series. This takes place in the Midwest and kind of in the westward expansion of the United States. And we follow the Ingalls family, Ma and Pa, and the three girls. There are now, reading this in 2020, with a 2021 lens, there are quite a few problematic things in the way that Native Americans are talked about in this series, but it is a product of its time, and you do learn about westward expansion and life on the plains and the prairie and the struggles that they experienced and the fears and the family dynamics and all of that. It is such a nostalgic series for me. I read it quite a bit when I was younger, but I only own this first one. I should probably try to get the rest of them. Moving forward in time, I believe we come to the Great Depression era in the United States, and I have Out of the Dust, which is a Newbery winner by Karen Hesse. And this is a book written in verse. It's a relatively quick read, but I thought it was so well done, just talking about the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression and what that's like for this young girl growing up in that time period. So good. And also in the 1930s kind of Depression era, Esperanza Rising by Pam Munoz Ryan. You will see her again on my list soon. This is the story of a young girl named Esperanza who moves to America with her family from Mexico. They live on a farm and are put to work and do work living on this farm, but they needed to escape the situation in Mexico and find a place where they could eat and survive and work. I just found this so good. Pam Munoz Ryan is a fantastic writer, and I definitely want to read all of her books, but I would recommend Esperanza Rising for sure if you haven't read it. Then we move into my little World War II pile, which you guys know I love World War II historical fiction. The first one I have is another Newbery winner, Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. This is about a young girl in Denmark, and her best friend is Jewish. And so just her coming to realize how the world is treating the two families very differently. And as the war comes to Denmark, how that affects them. And it's just a tiny, tiny little book, but it's so well done. I loved it so much. Of course, I can't talk about World War II historical fiction without talking about two of my favorites, A Duology and Echo. Here's the other Pam Munoz Ryan book. Echo is a lovely, lovely story where we follow three different children and this kind of magical harmonica, basically. So it starts out with this little fairy tale vibe. And then we follow three different children, a young boy in Germany, a young Jewish boy in Germany, a pair of brothers in Pennsylvania who end up being sent into a foster family, and then a young girl in California who is a migrant worker, and they move into the house of a Japanese family that was sent to an internment camp. So we kind of get these three different aspects of World War II and how it's affecting these children. And the way that Pam Munoz-Ryan ties it all together at the end is absolutely stunning. I highly recommend this book. And especially if you listen to audiobooks, I would recommend the audio of this because it's phenomenal. And there's music all the way through. Music plays a huge part in this story. It's just beautiful. And I never realized until way later that this is actually a harmonica right here. Why didn't I see that? And on the side as well. Lovely. Such a good book. And probably one of my favorite middle grade duologies ever is The War That Saved My Life and The War I Finally Won by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. Her first one here won an honor, Newbery Honor. These two books follow the story of Ada and her little brother as they leave London during the bombings of World War II. As London starts being bombed, lots of families sent their children to live in the countryside and live with other families. And Ada and her brother escape from London and move in with this woman named Susan, who has a lot of issues of her own. Ada also has is lame. She is born with a club foot, and her birth mom is straight awful. She's horrible and kept Ada hidden inside because she was embarrassed by her and treated her awfully and abused her ultimately. And Ada is just learning how to receive and give love. And it's just such a stunning story. So good. Would 1000% recommend that one as well. I have two books that are set during the Vietnam War, and both of these are fantastic. I really need to read the sequel to this one, but I have The Wednesday Wars by Gary D. Schmidt, and this takes place in a school setting for the most part, but we are learning about the Vietnam War and how it's affecting these kids and the teachers, and it's just so well done. I just think that this one is so fantastic. And another book that centers on the Vietnam War is one of my favorites from last year, Until Tomorrow, Mrs. Marsworth by Sheila O'Connor. This is an epistolary novel, and we follow Rennie, this young girl. Rennie, is that her name? It's 1968. Rennie and her brothers move with her grandmother because her father went to go get a job in like the Dakotas or something. Rennie gets a paper route and starts writing to this gentleman who is a recluse who's on her paper route, and then he responds. And so this book is really their correspondence back and forth with each other. Rennie also has a pen pal soldier that she starts writing to through a project at school, and her brother is 18 and is potentially going to be drafted to go to Vietnam, and she wants to do everything in her power to try to stop that from happening. So again, this book discusses peace and protesting and war and just deals with so many like deep issues in such a wonderful way. I highly recommend Until Tomorrow, Mr. Marsworth. So good. And the last one that I have already read is Refugee by Alan Gratz. And this one kind of covers a couple different time periods because we follow three different refugees. Again, we have a boy fleeing from the Nazi regime. We have a young girl in Cuba fleeing from Castro's regime, trying to get on a boat and go to Miami. And then the third one is a Syrian refugee escaping from all that happened in Syria in 2015. So I think that this book is stunning, and the way that Alan Gratz takes these three stories and weaves them together and really shows similarities in what it's like to be a refugee and have to leave your homeland that you love but is just no longer safe. And the way that it all comes together is just so stunning. This is the only book I've read from Alan Gratz, and I really would love to read more because it was so good. It was so good. Now I have a few. I just have like 7 or 2, 4, 6. I just have 7 books on my shelves that I found that I have not yet read that I'm really interested in reading. And I don't know too much about them. The first one I have is probably the oldest of all of these, and it takes place in 14th century England. It's kind of like a medieval feel. It did win a Newbery. It's Crispin, The Cross of Lead by Avi. Avi is a very prolific middle grade author, and I've read a couple of his books. Definitely want to read more, especially because this one is a Newbery. But we follow this young boy named Crispin, who I believe is a serf, and he's going on a quest to hopefully raise his standing in the world, I think. I don't really know too much more about it, but I know that Avi is a well-loved middle grade author, and it's a Newbery, so it's definitely on my radar to pick up soon. Maybe this March. I don't know. I have a Revolutionary War story, 1776, which is Sophia's War. Sophia has a brother who's being held captive on a British prison ship. He was a soldier, and she wants to kind of do her part for the revolution. And I think she's going to get a chance to do something about that. And this is by Avi as well. I didn't realize they're both by Avi. Yeah, he writes a lot of historical fiction. I have a couple others that I think are probably historical as well, so that's kind of fun. A book set in the South during pre-Civil War is Chains by Laurie House Anderson. Oh, I also have Fever, 1793, about the Black Plague. Forgot to bring that one down, but that's also by Laurie House Anderson. This one, however, is set during time of slavery, and this one is the first in a trilogy, which I now have all 3 of, so maybe I'll just binge through all 3 of them. I've heard really high praise for this one, but I haven't read it yet. Yikes. So good, I hope. 2 World War II historical fiction. Actually, I think this one might be nonfiction. The Boy on the Wooden Box by Leon Layson. And this is a story of one of the children who was on Schindler's List and was able to be rescued. And it takes place in Poland, Krakow. Yeah, and I believe this is more of a memoir, middle grade nonfiction memoir. So that should be really good. And then I Am David, I think became a movie by Anne Holm. And this is about a young boy who basically grew up in concentration camps. And I think it's also based on a true story as well. His entire 12-year life has been spent in a grisly concentration camp in Eastern Europe. So his entire life has been spent there. He knows nothing of the outside world. But when he's given the chance to escape, he seizes it. Yikes. That sounds so good. I need to read that. And then 2 kind of post-World War II, I have A Night Divided by Jennifer A. Nielsen. Basically, this one is set around the time of the Berlin Wall being put up, and it got put up basically overnight, so quickly. And this family lives on the side of the wall, but her father, for some reason, goes on an errand or something. I'm not sure how he gets over there, but when the wall is erected, he is on the other side of the wall and he can't get back to his family, who are now basically prisoners in their own city. So I don't think I've read anything that deals more specifically with Berlin during the time of the wall being put up. So I feel like that will be a really good one. And I think a librarian recommended this to me last year during middle grade March. And the final book that I have to share with you today, I'm sure that I have more on my shelves, but the final one is The Lions of Little Rock by Kristen Levine. This one takes place in 1958 in Little Rock, Arkansas. Best friends refuse to give up on each other no matter the cost, and it deals with desegregation of schools in Arkansas in the 1950s. So very volatile time period, beginning of the civil rights movement, all of that, and it deals with these 2 friends, one black, one white. And I feel like this is going to be such an important and heart-wrenching read as well. Like heartwarming, maybe, hopefully. Yeah, I feel like this is going to be such a good book. So there you have it. Quite a few middle grade historical fiction recommendations for you that I have on my shelves. I hope you heard something here today that inspires you to pick up a middle grade historical book. If you are participating in Historathon, maybe one of these will fit the bill for you. But yeah, I love historical fiction and I love middle grade. And so I love talking to you about these books. It makes me very happy. So hopefully you found 1 or 2 that you've added to your TBR. I will have Amazon links for all of these books in the description below. If you click on those links and purchase anything, it supports me a little bit. No pressure to do that. I just have it there as an option for you if you're like, I need that book in my life right now, which I am sometimes that way. Let's chat down in the comments below. Do you have any other middle grade historical fiction that maybe I didn't mention today that you want to recommend to me? I would love to hear your recommendations. I would love to hear if you've added any of these to your TBR. And I think that's it. Let's chat down in the comments. You guys know I love talking with you down there. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it. Check out all the ways to connect with me in the description below. I appreciate you watching this video and supporting me in that way. And I will be talking with you in another video very soon. Bye.